Hi everyone, this is Carrie Newton with Parker Properties and I'm coming to you live from my kitchen. I'm gonna film several videos today, so if you see several videos in the same outfit, same hairdo, just know I actually do change clothes. But today we're gonna talk about the difference between deed restrictions and an HOA. This is a very common question that I get, so I thought I'd do a little video to help people out. So first, I want to preface, I'm not an attorney. This is not legal advice. I sell houses for a living. So if you want real legal advice, please do seek an attorney. But let me explain the difference between the two for you. So an HOA is formed by a board of people who get together inside of a subdivision and they say, we want to create some rules and some guidelines for this subdivision that everyone that lives here has to follow. Those rules are voted on. They can be amended with a vote. And they're, so like they're voted on and they can be amended with a vote. There's generally dues that apply for an HOA, and that normally pays for like, common spaces, upkeep, that kind of thing. If you've got a park, if you've got a pool, those dues pay for those types of things. So let's say, for instance, you move into a subdivision with an HOA and the HOA says, you cannot paint your house purple. Like it's written, it's in the rules, no purple houses. And you really want to paint your house purple. You, as a homeowner inside of that subdivision, paying member of that HOA, you can go to the HOA and you can say, I would like to amend the rule that says no purple houses, okay? And it would go in front of the board. They would vote yes or no. Maybe you get a purple house, maybe you don't get a purple house, okay? So that's how that works. So let's say you move into a subdivision where there are deed restrictions, okay? When there are deed restrictions on a property, they're set when the property is originally subdivided. So Mr. Smith owns, owns 1,000 acres. Mr. Smith subdivides that 1,000 acres and sells it off. But before he does that, he writes deed restrictions that go on that land that say forever and always, till death do you part, there can never be a purple house built out here, okay? And I'm using like a super silly analogy, so I'll give you a better analogy here in a second. And that's it, like no purple houses can ever be set on this land that I owned, no matter how many times it subdivides, rule still applies, no purple houses, okay? And you move into that subdivision and you think, gosh, I would just love to paint my house purple, but I can't. There's deed restriction that says that I can't. There's no deed restriction police that are gonna drive around and see, oh my gosh, are they following it? Oh, look at there, Mary Lou, she painted her house purple. Deed restrictions kind of depend on nosy neighbors. Like you have to have a neighbor that sees that you painted your house purple who is willing to go to civil court to say they were not allowed to paint their house purple and yet they painted their house purple, okay? So there's one difference between HOA and a subdivision. There's generally HOA police, the board members, right? But there's no real deed restriction police. Nobody's driving around and making sure that things are done properly. And if you want to change a deed restriction, you have to go back to the person who originally set that restriction in place. That was Mr. Smith in this example. So what if Mr. Smith has passed? Well, now you have to go to Mr. Smith's heirs, and legal mumbo jumbo, like it can be kind of difficult to change a deed restriction. And that change to that deed restriction would have to be specific to, your property, so you own lot 1 inside of that subdivision and you want to change the deed restriction specifically for lot 1 to allow purple houses. So, it can be very, very, very difficult to do. So the difference between HOA and deed restrictions is HOA, they can vote on it. Deed restrictions, you have to go back to the original person that set that, okay? So here's a question I get all the time, or more a comment that I get all the time. Someone will call me and they'll say, hey, Carrie, we are looking for a piece of property. We do not want an HOA because we want to be able to do whatever we want to do on that property. common misconception. People think that if there's no HOA, then they can do whatever they want. But I will tell you, especially in my area, I cannot speak for other areas, a lot of properties have deed restrictions. More have them than don't have them, right? So just because you don't have an HOA does not mean that technically you can do whatever you want on that piece of property. It also has to, the deed restrictions have to say that you can do whatever it is that you want to do on your property. Paint all your houses purple, for example. So that was a silly example. So let me give you real life examples. And this is why I, as a buyer's agent, kind of get really into my people's business. So if someone calls me and they say, Carrie, I want to buy 2 acres of land, no HOA, because I want to do whatever I want to do on the property, my first question is, well, what do you want to do? What are you interested in doing? Do you want to put a mobile home? Are you planning on building a home? Are you planning on doing a barn dominium? Those have grown in popularity. Everyone wants a barn dominium now. So I get into their business because I need to know, like, what do you hope that you are able to do on this piece of property? Because if your plan is to put a barn dominium, we need to look at the deed restrictions for the property. Make sure that you can put a barn dominium. Make sure that if there's a size restriction, that you have to build it 1,000 square foot or larger, or 2,000 square foot or larger, or that it has to be 80% brick, or that it has to be, so these are all these things that you have to, know when you're going into a piece of property. So long story short, difference between deed restrictions and HOA, they both restrict what you can and cannot do on your property. It would be, in my opinion, easier to get a change or an amendment to a rule if you were in an HOA than it would be on a deed restriction. But they both limit what you can and cannot do. So if you're looking to buy land and you want to truly be able to do whatever it is that you want to do on that piece of property, make sure that you are telling your agent what you plan to do. Okay? All right, that's it. Bye, guys.